Hello, good afternoon. I'm Adam Fagbore, a PhD Fellow from the Bonn Centre for Dependency and Slavery Studies at the University of Bonn. First, I'd like to thank the organiser of the conference proceedings for his hard work in ensuring that the conference has gone ahead as originally planned, and also for the DFG for funding my own research into this paper. My presentation today will concentrate on forms of social control and compulsion in the borderlands of Middle Kingdom Nubia. In rather general terms, it is clear that there are a variety of different modes in which individuals and groups were coerced and controlled, which evolved and developed throughout the history of pharaonic Egypt. As we do not have enough time to look at a variety of different time periods, I will focus primarily on source material from Nubia during the Egyptian 12th dynasty. During the Old and Middle Kingdom, the Egyptians used terms such as Nehesi and Medjay to denote people native to the Eastern Desert near the First and Second Cataracts. There is evidence that these groups were employed to restrict access of others to important desert routes in the borderlands of ancient Nubia, as desert roads were important yet narrow paths that could control access to other regions of the desert. A focus on the control of desert routes offers a case study of the tensions that arose from non-state actors monitoring human populations moving through Pacific localities in desert border regions, and also for the recruitment of people from these regions. Foreign expeditions to Nubia, which ensured Egypt had access to valuable economic sources that exist in the area, or pass through it en route from even further south, were a major feature of the 11th and 12th dynasties. Continual campaigns, specifically on the Semna I and Semna III, extended the borders of Egypt down to the Semna Cataract region. To consolidate the rule of Egypt over Lower Nubia, the establishment of a permanent network of huge fortresses was constructed at various strategic points along the Nile, particularly between the First and Second Cataracts. Economic exploitation was clearly a major inducement in Nubia. It's significant that some of the Middle Kingdom forts following the Old Kingdom present at Buhen were constructed near important mining areas and trading posts. For example, Kuben was an important region of direct extraction, and likewise Buhen for the extraction of copper. Although the forts were built during the brief period between the reigns of Semna I and Semna III, they demonstrate a considerable range in the nature of their size, defences and functions. The headquarters for the entire southern complex of forts running from Buhen to Semna South lay in the north at Buhen. Buhen was an ancient Egyptian settlement situated on the west bank of the Nile to the north of the Second Cataract. In the Old Kingdom, it was a site of a small trading post in Nubia that was also used for copper workings. The fortress itself was built south of the New Kingdom settlement. The site was situated on the open desert plains and was protected by inner walls that surrounded the settlement and outer walls that were situated at a further distance. These fortifications situated on the bank of the Nile show a rectangular layout. Their ramparts are surrounded by wide ditches which were protected by separate walls that ran parallel to the curtain. The inner walls of the fort and its main citadel were constructed at the site during the early 12th dynasty during the reign of Semna I, which is shown by a sandstone stela found behind the temple area, which dated to the 5th year of his reign. The outer citadel may have been constructed during the reign of Semna III due to his presence at other Egyptian forts and the fact that of his defecation in the temple at Buhen alongside his royal predecessor Semna III. During the reign of Semna III, many existing fortifications seem to have been upgraded and many new ones were seemingly built. In the region of the Second Cataract, the following fortifications can be traced back to his reign: Semna South, Semna West, Kuma, Urinatari, Asku, Surrey East, and so on. The fortress system at Semna consisted of 3 installations that not only provided military protection, but also regulated trade and diplomatic traffic to the north. The sites were located near the narrowest gorge in the entire course of the Nile Valley. Two of the forts were situated on the western bank, which were Semna West and Semna South. A further one, Kuma, stood opposite Semna West on the east bank of the Nile. The southernmost fortress was Semna South. From here, a mud brick wall fenced off the territory to the west and led to the huge fortress of Semna East, which was situated approximately a mile to the north. The remains of such a feature, which was 2 meters wide, and resting on a stone foundation, can be traced at both sites. The fortresses were positioned at Semna because of the expansion of Egypt into Lower Nubia by Semna III, and were probably a means of protecting and controlling access into northwards into Egypt. The reason for this intensified military commitment may have been due to the increasing pressure brought about by the rise of the state of Kerma. This kingdom, whose centre was located at the third cataract, may have stretched as far as the area beyond Kyrgyz in the direction of the fifth cataract. This point is further emphasised in the Ramesseum Onomasticon, in which 17 fortresses situated between Gebel el Sisila in Upper Egypt and Semna South at the Second Cataract are listed alongside their ancient Egyptian names. Although the classifications represent an inherently simplistic list, the names for those installations, which date back to the reign of Semna III, show a regular pattern containing the names of the fortresses against those enemies to which the fortress was most likely directed. For instance, the fort at Uintari was named repelling the Yunteu, repelling the Medjay at Surrey East, and repelling the bows at Semna East, and so on. As demonstrated by their names, they were designed primarily to monitor and control the movements of the inhabitants of Lower Nubia and the eastern deserts. The regime's attempts to limit the movement of peoples in the Semna stela of the same pharaoh infer a clear nervousness about the security of the southern border. The Semna stela are among the most important for the history of Egyptian involvement in Nubia and for the manner of control that she exercised over her southern borders. The boundary stela from Semna West and its counterpart from Uintari confirm that the fortresses which clustered around the southern part of the Second Cataract were considered to be a true frontier, well, at least by the central regime. There were originally 2 stela of Semna, the third placed on Egypt's southern borders at Semna. The largest stela commemorated the establishment of the southern frontier. It also made note of the king's concern for the newly extended border and the ability of his own sons and successors to maintain that frontier. In contrast, the smaller Semna stela is a simple boundary stone which was intended to simply mark the border and to describe some aspects of its administration. It states namely that Nubians must settle their trading works whereas within the system without advancing past Semna. The stela is essentially a written notice of the regulations for the control of the movement of populations and can be understood alongside the forts as a physical manifestation of the policy that it declared. In essence, the stela intended to inform the literate that the Nubian population was prohibited from entering the area and asserted the king's authority over the newly established border. It also implies that Nubians could trade as far north of Megissa, which stresses the importance of the fortifications that were established at Megissa by Semna III earlier in the 12th dynasty. The fortress of Megissa, a complex of numerous buildings, included a unique preserved way for loads and ships in order to bypass the Second Cataract. It was situated approximately 91 metres from the harbour, where boats from the south could dock in calm waters when the rapids of the cataract prevented them from continuing their journey further north. The fort covered more than 40,000 square metres. It consisted of a double wall with bastions and square cornered towers, which were 12 metres high. The south side, which faced the Nile, was protected by a fortified wall and two enormous gates that flanked to the north and near the southwest corner of the river. The north gate had a narrow passage, its access blocked by two wooden doors and a portcullis, which allowed its sentries to observe the movements of people in the nearby wadi. Together with the fort at Dabanari, which was situated on opposite on an island to the opposite, two fortresses formed a barrier to prevent invasions from the south. Importantly, other fragmented sources from the Egyptian fortresses in Lower Nubia demonstrate that the tracking of the movements of local peoples seems to conform to the policy of the crown documented on the Semna stela as a means of political and economic control at the local level. The most important evidence for a system of written communication is used to support the administration of Nubian forts. It's found in the Semna Dispatches from the late 12th dynasty. The Middle Kingdom Semna Dispatches are copies of the reports of border patrols from the Nubian borderlands and desert regions, which seem to be composed into a roll by a single scribe and then sent on to Thebes from the Semna fort in Lower Nubia in the third year of an unnamed king, who is most likely Menemhotep III of the late 12th dynasty. The reports were discovered in a wooden box alongside a collection of 23 other fragmented papyri from a late Middle Kingdom tomb at Thebes, which was located underneath the magazines of the later mortuary temple of Ramesses II, the so-called Ramesseum. As the papyri was found in a private tomb at Thebes, it seems likely that the reports were either written in Thebes based on the original reports sent from Semna, or alternatively compiled at Semna and sent to an unnamed official in Thebes to act as a composite report. They typically deal with the movement of local populations, such as Nubians who came to trade goods with the Egyptian forts in Lower Nubia, and groups of Medjay, some looking for work, whose movement in the desert was seemingly deemed noteworthy enough to be tracked by the administration of the forts. In particular, they record the arrival and departure of various groups of migrants, and include the reports of various observation parties which were tracking migrants in the local desert. Semna Dispatch 4 is the copy of correspondence sent from the follower Meni, who was identified with the fort repeller of the Medjay at Surrey East, to advise his lord that two of his patrolmen from Mihar had previously reported to him that the frontier patrol currently patrolling the edge of the desert had discovered the tracks of 32 men and 3 donkeys near Surrey East. Similarly, in another example from Semna Dispatch 6, a garrison near Semna East reported that they had sent out a patrol, and when they returned, they reported that they had found something there, which is known due to fragmented text, and the dispatch to Semna West was sent to notify the fort of the presence. The scribe from Semna East then notes that Semna Hesse had previously arrived there, and also notes that he'd passed the content of Dispatch 6 to some of the other forts in the area to alert them of the group's movements northwards. Although it is unclear whether the group was later detained by any of the other forts and for what reason they were actually travelling. One of the major aspects of the relationship between the movements of people and the forts is, in other contexts, is trade. Dispatches of this exchanges, of this kind between the Nahesi and the fort at Semna West appear in several of the dispatches. In dispatch number 1, the Shemu, the follower, Sihat Abari, reported a problem which was reported to the garrison and perhaps the scribe of Semna West. Then another unnamed actor reported that they had found Nahesi women and donkeys. The same women later arrived at Semna West to conduct trade. Unfortunately, the texts do not imply what is being exchanged, although we do know that the women were allowed to stay at the fort for the night, and they were provided with bread and beer as seemingly as custom dictated, and an aspect which was inherent in several of the dispatches before they left the following morning. Although the forts provided base for further economic exploitation resources, the threat of migrating peoples and the growing threat to Egypt from Kush further south were likely just as major influencing factors in their construction. Regardless of the circumstances, the migration of people often took place in very harsh desert conditions. Dispatch number 3 is the copy of a correspondence sent from the disputed Vizier Fagbore, who is identified with the Megessa fort. The dispatch reports that the patrol unit, consisting of 2 warriors and a Medjay patrol, had presumably tracked an extended kingship group of 7 nomads from the inscriptions of Shemu found at the edge of the desert, at the edge of the Nile, south of the fort on Megessa. They were then brought back to the fortress for questioning, and the Medjay then provide specific information about their origins. Namely that they said they come from the well of Irab in the Wadi Alki, which was south of the Second Cataract. And it seems that word has been sent further on to the northern forts to advise of this approaching group. In particular, the scribe recorded how many people the patrol had found, where the people had come from, and the direction in which they had travelled. What is an interesting example is that Medjay seems to have been recruited to track and return the people to track the movement of peoples, and also to return them to the forts for questioning, at least in this occasion. Seemingly any groups that may be migrating to seek work or for other reasons in terms of their own personal necessities, such as hunger. Dispatch number 5 probably shed more light in this context. It reports that an extended family of pastoral nomads that consisted of 2 Medjay men, 3 Medjay women and 2 infants had come down from the desert to the fort at Elephantine looking for work. When questioned about the conditions in the desert, the Medjay advised of the hunger and starvation that they were perhaps trying to escape. Nevertheless, they are dismissed without employment. Behind this vision of disorder lies a familiar structural poverty that should always be taken seriously in our picture of migration and movements of people in Middle Kingdom Nubia. Hunger is always shown at the margins in ancient Egypt. Relief from the causeways, the Sahara and Yunus show starving Bedouin that define deserts as hungry. In other contexts, the depictions of emancipated herdsmen are known in the Middle Kingdom tomb at Mer, just as Hekenat's family complained of hunger while he was away from home after he placed them on half rations. It is reasonable to envision a society where some people were regularly hungry, or at least sufficiently enough to be part of the common experience. The recruitment of Nubian manpower and auxiliary troops seems to have been a real concern for the Middle Kingdom. The rock inscriptions of the Nubian soldier Taihi Imu, carved at Nag el Wasia in the region of Abysso, recount the career of a Nubian who enlisted in the Theban army under Montuhotep II during the 11th dynasty. As his inscriptions and others of the 11th dynasty imply, Montuhotep used the routes through the Kirkuk desert oasis to recruit Nubian soldiers for the forces of Thebes. These inscriptions are not only important for information about his career, but they also shed light on how Nubian recruits were recruited at the start of the Middle Kingdom. The inscription begins by recounting his enlistment into the army of Montuhotep II during a visit by that ruler to the region of Wahat in Lower Nubia in the year of smiting the hill country. Mahu seems to be involved in a later Egyptian attack on Irjet, the land immediately south of Wahat, during the Old Kingdom, perhaps near the area of Buhan. This implies that he was presumably alongside other Nubian groups that may have ultimately assisted with the conquest of Lower Nubia and were necessary additions to help consolidate Egyptian control over the region. What is interesting is that Mahu, similarly to description in the dispatches, seemingly went in search of patronage and work with his own son, who presumably was not of military age, so somebody who was dependent on him. Although no partner or other further kin or family members are mentioned, the source suggests that the recruitment of people who had come with their dependents seeking employment was not entirely unusual. The Montuhotep's recruitment of Mahu belongs to a long tradition in which actors from Lower Nubia were recruited or captured by Old Kingdom nomads on personal expeditions to the region. In another example from letter 5, the papyri Ramesseum, the official Jabar holds the title something of the Medjay. Although due to the fragmented state of the papyri, the title is quite uncertain. Kramer and Lisker have speculated that it could be the title Agent of the Medjay, which is known from other Middle Kingdom contexts associated with the patrolling of desert routes. Jabar is said to command the districts in the fortress of Kuben, and presumably will leave once his service to the fort was over. According to the information we have here, this was expected to be a period of approximately 4 months while he was on duty at the fort, which is comparable with the changing of the philae in the document found at Luhon, found approximately the same period. The entrance to the area that the Egyptians referred to as Medjay land was located through the Wadi al-Jay, and the fortress of Kuben was positioned in the wadi's mouth. So, in a sense, we also provided access to gold and copper mines there. Nevertheless, the letter, in effect, provides evidence for the internal management of the fort rather than the external control over the movement of peoples from the Eastern Desert and Nubia at the transition of the transition period from the 12th dynasty to Dynasty 13. A comparison could perhaps be made between the system of forts in Nubia and the defensive features found on the Alamat Road in the Western Desert at Middle Kingdom Thebes, although albeit on a much reduced scale compared to the Nubian forts. Clusters of dry stone huts were constructed at strategic routes along the road where the topography allowed passage to be controlled. On either side of the wadi, semicircle huts occur in which patrols could observe passing traffic and also the movement of peoples into Egypt proper from the Western Desert. And circular fortification towers were found near the beginning of the Alamat-Tal Road, recalling design aspects of the Second Cataract fortresses in Nubia. The presence of Nubian recruits in this area is also confirmed by the presence of the 11th dynasty depiction of a Nubian patrolman in the nearby ancient desert tract. The Nubian patrolman, who can be identified by the short feather in his hair and a short kilt, is accompanied by a dog on a leash, which is shown bearing his teeth. The man is holding arrows in his left hand and Nubia in the right. The impression is one that the guarding dog has presumably been triggered by the presence of somebody entering his territory. The image was found at an ancient tract known as Dominion behind Thebes that connected the main western Theban routes with the main Alamat-Tal Road, and was placed at a strategic point at the southern end of the road where the topography allows the movement of people to be controlled. Such comparisons with other sites in ancient Egypt, particularly during the same time period in Middle Kingdom, may illuminate some of the practices seen at the First and Second Cataracts. Okay, so my concluding comments, I just wanted to pick up on some of the themes on the control of desert routes and the monitoring of human populations that were moving through Pacific localities and desert border regions that will be addressed in the final paper. I'll ask the following research questions. How effective was the system of thoughts between the first and second cataract used to track and control local populations at the southern frontier? How was the purpose of this? What was the purpose of the Semna Dispatches and how were they used? How important is the recruitment of local populations and to support the administration in the region, and whether or not comparisons with other defensive structures in Middle Egypt may also illuminate some of the practices seen around the First and Second Cataract during the 12th dynasty period. So again, at this point, I'd just like to thank the organisers for ensuring the proceedings have gone ahead as planned, and I look forward very much to discussing some of the points raised in the presentation in the panel sessions later in the week. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.